So what's the solution? And I'm going to try and leave you with a high, now that I've brought you right down. Okay, I don't know the answer. But last month at Spikes in Singapore, we ran a workshop called Is Creativity Valued? And we had about 50 people. It was a really interesting crowd because we had people from creative agencies in Pakistan, in China, Korea, Japan, Philippines. We had a really great cross-section from across Asia. And we quickly came to the conclusion, talking about the way in all of those countries that creativity is paid for, that as a creative industry, we're not particularly good at actually costing and valuing ourselves. So we started looking at what are the other creative areas in industry that actually seem to have some idea. We looked at the movie industry, motion pictures, publishing, architecture, photography, fashion, and the arts. And each group looked at how do they actually go about the process of being remunerated or rewarded. And there were 4 key insights that I want to share with you, because while I know the cynics in the audience will say, oh yeah, but if you write a book, that's not the same as being commissioned to do a TV ad. But I think these 4 insights are things really worthwhile for agencies, and especially for you to take back to your agency and share. The first one is, in almost every creative industry, the creative idea or the creative is thought of as a product, not a service. It's given a value or a price. It's not charged out by the hour. I don't see Dan Brown sitting there going, yeah, look, it took me about 2,500 hours to write this book. At $150 an hour, that's my fee. He's willing to go for the share of sales. Or Arnold Schwarzenegger. Someone worked out in Terminator 2, he had about 200 and something words, and divide that into his fee, it was about $178,000 a word. But I'm not sure that's how they negotiated his fee either. So it's about getting away from this idea that you're a service provider when it comes to creativity. Sure, production can be a service, but the actual creative idea has to move away from this thought that it's the number of hours you spend on coming up with the idea. I mean, there must be people in this room, because I know it happened with me working in a creative department, that sometimes the idea comes like that, and sometimes it can take days. So why should you be paid by the number of hours you spent on coming up with the idea? Start putting a price on it rather than just how many hours it took. The next one is, in each of these categories, the more distinctive the creator is, the greater the margin they're able to charge, or the premium they're able to charge. You know, why is it, what was the film Edward Norton would get paid more than an unknown actor? Because he's distinctive and he offers unique abilities, or unique positioning, or unique box office draw. And the same thing happens in agencies. The issue is that there are only 2 or 3 agencies that consistently clients will say to me, we want to run a pitch and we want, and I won't say them, but that we want this agency and maybe this agency. There's maybe 2 or 3 that the marketers know. The rest of the agencies in the marketplace are largely undifferentiated. Many marketers, the saying goes, only know 3 agencies: the one they fired, the one they're with, and one other. So unless you find ways of differentiating yourself and offering something that's distinctive and unique, you become a commodity. And commodity pricing actually goes to the lowest common denominator, which is why during pitches we see people competing on price. The third point was that creative people in other fields use intellectual property like copyright and trademark, not necessarily to hold the buyer to ransom, but to actually demonstrate that their ideas have tangible legal value. Now that's the important thing. Every time I've heard agencies talk about intellectual property, it's because they want to own it and then hold the client to ransom to pay for it. But just the process of going through and protecting your intellectual property, making sure the copyright's on that, adding a trademark, if you invent something, putting a patent on it, the process of doing that means you have to invest money. Investing money actually says to the buyer, we actually value this, rather than just giving it away. And I'm sick of seeing contracts that just assign all IP to the client. You could write a contract that says, yeah, we'll assign all the IP for the work you commission us on, but if we come up with another idea in your category and you didn't commission it, we own the IP. There's nothing that stops this. This is a negotiation. You don't have to roll onto your back, throw your legs in the air and have someone pat your belly every time you go into a negotiation. And that takes me to the final point, which is creative people in all other fields realise that they are the worst negotiators of their own value. So they have a talent agent. I mean, does anyone think if Ari Gold was working in your agency that you'd be discounting your fees? He'd be saying, fuck you, it's $2 million or you can piss off, or $10 million. But for some reason in your agency, there's this mentality that they want to get the business and they'll work out how to make money out of it later. Who's the person in your agency that really values what you do? Can you nominate one person that's actually standing up in these negotiations rather than rolling over? And unless you do that, if you don't value what you do and the agency you work for doesn't value what you do and you don't communicate value to your clients, then be prepared to end up as the lowest common denominator.